for this particular round. How many have been to other events besides this morning? Wow, Jasmine hosted a very good one last night, blogger versus brand and the relationship. Actually, there are a few very interesting workshops this time, and we hope today will be a full day, which is full of fun and also a lot of interesting sharing and also learning from one another. This morning is one session that's conducted in English, and in the afternoon we also have another session that's talking about insights in China, but that will be done in Mandarin and Cantonese. But that would be a very interesting session because we have a lot of interesting people coming in all the way from China. So if you have time, you can always drop by and just enjoy and get to know them. This morning we have 3 speakers. 2 of them are from Hong Kong and 1 fly in yesterday all the way from Singapore. So without further ado, you see Jay is here. I think he ran
all the way from Quarry Bay.
all the way from Quarry Bay to Harbour City to be with us this morning. We've actually got 3 speakers this morning. One is Jay Otway, 1 is Rudy, and 1 is Eunice. And I will introduce Jay a little bit and the other 2 speakers before they talk about. I think a lot of you are familiar with Mr. Otway, Canadian, right? Yeah, and he has been in Hong Kong for many years, but he still doesn't speak our language. I always tease him with this. Jay is a tech journalist who has become a regional leader in social media reach and influence. He's the author of the book. Can we have a show of Jay's book? Jay is actually, can I have a show of Jay's book? Can you bring 1 copy of Jay's book to me? Yeah. Jay has actually recently published his first book. For those of you who haven't bought it, I recommend it sincerely. I am serious. It's not because I get any commission out of this, but I have read the whole book. I'm really serious. I've read the whole book. For those who do not
read the book, show of hands. I know there's a few of you here.
Yes, I'm really serious.
Thank you.
We have a few copies there for sale, and you can definitely buy it during the break and ask Jay for his autograph. But the reason why I said I strongly recommend this book is it's a very easy to understand book and gives a very, very clear background of how brands can use social media and how you could also make use of social media to make yourself a social leader. It's a very interesting read. So if you happen to find social media something you would like to know more, do grab a copy and enjoy reading it, and I hope it would give you a lot of insight. So Jay has actually got more than 100,000 followers in a lot of platforms, and I think he is very, very strong on Twitter with a Twitter handle @JOtway. And he also has very close ties to social media's most influential thought leaders. And he has been dubbed Hong Kong's answer to Twitter royalty by Marketing Magazine, right?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Matt and Erica. And ranked number 22 on the Forbes Top 50 Social Media Power Influencers. So I think Jay has got a lot of interesting background, and he's going to actually now share with us some of the things that he has done and how he has made himself a social leader. But before we kickstart, for those of you who are using social media, I hope you will also be sharing this particular session through your different platforms. If you're using Twitter, then the hashtag for this morning is SMWHKinfluencers, and the hashtag for the whole event is SMWHK. @JOtway is his Twitter handle, and @HK Harbour City is the Twitter handle for Harbour City. And of course, you can also tweet it through Facebook and also Sina Weibo. So let's give a big round of applause to Jay.
Well, thank you all very much for being patient and waiting for me to get all the way across town. My apologies for keeping you waiting. I'll try to make up for it by being really concise and awesome in a short period of time, okay? What is influence? All right, this is a question that if we poll people online, and we have polled people online, nobody gives the same answer twice. It really is something quite personal, means something different to all of us. Yet, it's something that we're in meetings all the time talking about influencers these days. How do we connect with influencers? How do we build our own influence? And so today I'm going to help help us talk a little bit through the language of what is influence, and it may or may not work. Right, so my book, we will talk more about that. Here's a great quote. If you think that you're a person of some influence, try ordering somebody else's dog around. The point to this is that we all have influence. Our circles are different, and those who we can influence that vary from person to person. But each and every one of us has the ability to influence others. Let me turn this table around. It'll make a lot more sense. Whoops, it's got the projector on it. All right. So whatever influence is becoming, it's going to be with us for the rest of time. Right now, online, there are influence stores that basically look at your social media presence and decide whether you're somebody or nobody. We all want to be somebodies. We all want our brands to be somebodies. These numbers are going to be following us around forever, so they really matter. This is your new credit score, just the way that the banks are keeping track of whether or not you're a good credit risk. Right now, there are digital authorities out there keeping track on whether or not you're a good social media risk. One of those authorities is a site called Clout. And now, Clout.com, spelled with K, has made it their mission to be the tracker of influence. I've had a lot of criticism for them over the last couple of years because I don't think they really track influence. I think what they track is active presence, the size of your presence, and your likability. Now, don't get me wrong, all three of those things are really important. Having a large, active community of people that you're interacting with and being well liked by that community will never hurt your online influence. But I don't think that's the whole story of what is influence. I think there's a lot more to it. And I think, as I said, each one of us has the ability to influence another circle. My grandmother's got a little knitting circle. When she says that they should all go and buy new yarn, they all go buy new yarn. If I was to say to them, you should go buy new yarn, they're not going to listen to me. We all have influence in our various circles. What I like about Clout, though, what they've changed just in the last couple of weeks, is they've added this new column called Your Moments. And what Your Moments is doing is taking the stuff that you've been sharing through social media, Twitter, Facebook, you've got a whole bunch of choices, G+, LinkedIn, Foursquare, YouTube, and many more, Instagram. And what it does is it's looking at which ones get shared the most. Which of the things that you've been sharing have been liked and reshared by others, and who was resharing that? And it sort of gives you a bit of a hall of fame of your best activity, the stuff that you did that got a lot of traction. And I think this is really useful because it helps each of us define our own stories a bit better. We each get to sort of think, oh, when I start talking about these things that I really like, look, I get really good results from that. I get lots of that. And I think it's important that we all start figuring out where our own individual spheres of influence are, because that would be useful then for us helping our brands move their spheres of influence forward. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the definitions for influence and where we get lost with it. Now, some define it as the ability to affect the choices made by others. And this happens sort of in three levels. I just met this morning with a bunch of people from the advertising industry, and they were talking a lot about how we are going to mess with people's psychology so that they do things. And I find that whole very deeply disturbing. So there's three weight levels that we demonstrate that we have been moved by something. Sometimes we say in a group setting, yes, we agree, all my friends like Justin Bieber, so I'm going to like Justin Bieber too, but you keep your fingers crossed, you don't really have to like him on the inside. And I think a lot of brands get suckered in by that when people click the like button. They think, oh, they really like me. But I think most people have their fingers crossed when they click like buttons. Identification is the next sort of level. I was talking this morning with somebody who's creating these fictional online characters so that people could identify with them, and then maybe that would affect their buying decisions. And it is true that when we see somebody who's really cool doing something, we have to think, ooh, I'd like to be like that person. And then the third level is when we internalize that and we're happy to sport even a tattoo of our brand loyalty. That's probably an extreme case that I just mean there for any of you who don't know her. So those are sort of three levels of people being influenced, or how we move through an influence cycle. There's another definition of influence that I like that I want to share with you, and that is the power to convene and tell a good story. And this, in my mind, gets back to what the difference between social is and what mass is. So social media, mass media, I feel are very different. The mass media is trying to get that conversion of you into that, brand loyal customer who will get a tattoo. But I think in social, I think it influence a lot more is about, do people want to come around and talk with you? Are you the sort of person that's popular at the water cooler? Do you have interesting opinions and things to share? We had a great blogger panel last night that talked a lot about the opinion economy that we live in, and that bloggers have this right to their opinion. In fact, that's what we want from them. We want to hear strong opinions of people. The ability to gather people around and tell a good story is influence. And in fact, getting people together today, just when there's such an attention deficit, to get people to sit like you are today and listen to me, it's a certain accomplishment. We all have so many draws on our time, so thank you all for being here. Influence can be subtle. It can be lots of little nudges by a group to shepherd a new idea into popularity. As a group, we can influence individuals much more easily than an individual can influence a group. And we've seen social media explode in places where groups of like-minded people have really wanted to do away with certain individuals. We saw a lot of it with the Arab Spring last year. That's influence, but it's certainly not the sort of influence that advertisers want to talk about. And influence is also personal, is what I was saying in the beginning. And so much of what social is now is one-to-one. The closer your relationship with someone, and this is really particularly important in the B2B world, the deeper the relationship you have with somebody, the more influence you can exert over them. So a lot of what we need to use social for these days isn't, push a message and hope that converts somebody, but to share lots of little things back and forth between us that builds a deeper and deeper relationship. And these can be pictures of your breakfast or lunch or whatever it is that you have, share in common with somebody or have shared value with. That deepen a relationship so that at some point further down the line, that person trusts you enough that if you say to them, look, you really should do X, Y, or Z, that they'll listen to you. Now, the problem with that, though, is that we each have a limited number of active relationships. It's called the Dunbar number. It's about 150. Most of us manage far fewer than that, a couple dozen at best. So there are only so many people that we can influence that way. Every relationship is different, and everything depends on the context of the situation. So there's no one-size influence that fits all. However, that said, there has been a number of attempts by all sorts of very smart people to try and draw up influencer theory. There's a nice little chart here of all the different ones over the ages that have tried to sort of put it together and how they all connect and interact with each other. But no single influence model seems to support all occasions. The good news is we don't need a grand unifying theory of influencers. We've been influencing situations since we were babies. Anybody a parent here? Any parents in the room? Right. A little baby that cries, and can only cry, has an amazing ability to influence you, to get you out of bed and try and figure out what needs to be done. As we've grown up, anybody here got teenagers? Not me, but some do. I hear that their methods of influence become even more sophisticated. Being a teenager once myself, I know that's true. And again, as we get into our adult lives, as we get into marketing and communications, all the things we try to do become more and more sophisticated. But also, with that becomes, we gain greater and greater tolerances against various tactics. What we're seeing is the very beginning of a lot of these tactics in social media. We're seeing a lot of brands having knee-jerk reactions to people who complain about their brand. Brand X sucks, and they spend all this effort trying to figure out who that person is and respond to the situation. We have to look at all these people who are complaining about your brand online and decide, are any of them influential? Are they trying to exploit us with emotional tactics? Are they crybabies? And we have to realize also then as individuals what brands are trying to do with social media to influence us so that we don't get suckered in by them. So I'm going to talk, there's a number more of these in my book than I'm going to have time for today, so I'm going to talk just really quickly about 3 of them. Social proof. Who here knows how many followers they've got on Twitter or Weibo, or how many friends they've got on Facebook? None of you keep track of the numbers. Oh, come on, liars. There's 2 types of people in the world, right? Those who want more followers and those who are lying. The bloggers in the front, I know, you know what I'm talking about. Social proof is when you get to see somebody's profile and you're like, oh wow, brands love this. In fact, it's the first mandate that many bosses give you is, I want 10,000 likes on my Facebook page. Not that that accomplishes anything, it doesn't mean anything at all, but it gives you this sort of social proof. It's like, look, we have an army of fans. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. It's all about that, having that big sign outside your restaurant that, makes it look like you're a really good restaurant. More is required to actually demonstrate that you are a good business. But it's a popularity craze that even that online score system I showed you earlier called Cloud, it feeds into that as well. That it's not always just about the number of followers you have now, it's how good is your influence score. Lady Gaga, she's got, nearly 30 million followers. Right now, we're also learning, though, that a lot of these numbers aren't true. So social proof works on the idea that if all of these other people have done something like followed you, then that must be the right thing to do. We comply with the group, even if we secretly think that maybe that big number isn't all that important. And these big numbers aren't all that important. In fact, we've discovered lately some really great tools for parsing out how many fakers a lot of these big accounts have. In China, I wish we had tools like this because the number of fakers are even bigger. But yeah, out of Lady Gaga's 30 million, about a third of them, less than a third of them, are good. So she's probably got like 9 million or something. Which, come on, that's still pretty awesome, right? But it sort of takes the wind out of your sails when you sort of see how much of this stuff is overinflated. And then you have to start to realize that you've fallen for social proof, that you've fallen into this psychological trap, that you were sucked in by a really big number that may not really been true. And online influence scores can look that way as well. It's been the criticism I've had with things like Cloud. Here's some of my Facebook friends and their scores on Cloud, and it looks really great. You think, ooh, I want to get my numbers up like theirs as well. There's this sort of race to sort of get a big number up there. Cloud has gotten better, and I will testify that all 6 of the people you see up there are really, truly awesome people. I love them very much. They do great things, and they deserve those scores. But there are scores out there that are overly inflated that people haven't deserved. And that always brings into the question that when you're looking at these, am I just being